February 27th, 2024 meeting of the Select Board. I'm Beth Cassavant. I am the chair, and we'll just take a moment to go around and introduce ourselves.
I'm Teresa Flynn.
Michelle Conlon.
John Samia.
Carlos Garcia.
Kevin Mizikar, Town Manager.
Justin Dobson, Assistant to Town Manager.
First item on the agenda is to approve the bills, the payrolls, and the warrants.
Move approval.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Item number 2 is to review and act to approve the minutes of the January 25th, 2024 joint workshop with the school committee and the February 13th, 2024 meeting.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Item number 3 is announcements and reports. I have one announcement to share this evening, and it is from the Shrewsbury Police Chief. It says here that we are pleased to announce that Shrewsbury Police Sergeant Tim Finicom has had an article published in FBI LEEDA Insider Magazine. Sergeant Finicom's article, titled Enhancing Law Enforcement Preparedness, Specialized Training for Responding to Individuals with Disabilities, emphasizes the importance of specialized training in dealing with individuals with disabilities and mental health issues. FBI LEEDA is a national organization that provides premier leadership and management training to law enforcement leadership and command staff throughout the country, as well as internationally. This publication is a significant achievement that showcases Sergeant Finicom's dedication and compassion in serving these individuals. And it goes on to talk about the many trainings that our Shrewsbury officers participate in throughout the year to make sure that they are ready to respond to emergencies for those who may have mental illness. They have suicide prevention, mental wellness, crisis intervention training, and something that's very close to me and my family, which is autism awareness training, and making sure that our officers are able to deal with all kinds of individuals in emergency situations. So congratulations to Sergeant Finicom, and thank you very much for the work on behalf of the residents of Shrewsbury. Are there any other announcements from board members? Okay. So that brings us to the town manager's report.
I don't have anything from our report.
Okay. So item number 5 is public comment pursuant to Select Board Policy 31 to offer citizens the opportunity to provide public comments during Select Board meetings on matters within the board's authority. No one has signed up for public comment this evening, but in the future, just let us know by the Monday before our meeting at noon, and we can add you to the agenda. So item number 6, there's no time on this. Is it okay? Okay. Item number 6 is a public hearing with Burton's Grill of Shrewsbury, LLC, DBA Burton's Grill and Bar, 193 Boston Turnpike, for a change of hours application to their Section 12 all alcohol pouring license. And I know that we have manager joining us remotely, so I want to make sure that you can hear us. Frank,
I can hear you. This is
Okay.
Frank Parzik. I'm a manager with Burton's Grill.
Great, thank you and welcome. I know that you're looking to change your hours to open an hour earlier on the weekend so that you can offer brunch to your patrons. Is there anything else you wanted to share about your request this evening?
No, that's it. We're excited to begin opening for brunch on the weekends.
Okay, so this would mean that instead of opening at 11:30 on Saturday and Sunday, Burton's would then start at 10:30 on Saturday and Sunday mornings. This is a public hearing. Is there anybody from the public wishing to be heard? Not seeing anyone in the room or online.
Move to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, what's the pleasure of the board?
Move to approve Burton's Grill and Bar's change of hours. Application to their Section 12 all alcohol pouring license as presented.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. All right, you're all set. Thank you very much. We look forward
Thank
to
you.
joining you for brunch.
Thanks, Frank.
This is a very exciting update.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Always good to have a brunch option. Okay. And we are going to move on to item number 7, which is a meeting with the Recreation Department for a departmental update. So I will invite you up to the table, whoever's here. Yeah, please come sit down. Be comfortable. Join us. And then we know who you are, but if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself for people who are watching at home.
Hi, thanks for having us. Can you hear me? I'm good.
Yep.
Laurel Roster, Director of Recreation.
And I'm Carly. I'm the Recreation Events Coordinator.
Welcome.
Thank you. We thought we'd just share like a departmental overview and update for what we've been up to for the past year or so since I joined the recreation department, and it's been a standalone department here in the town of Shrewsbury for the first time. So right now our team looks like this. Here we are at Dean Park on the swings. Myself, Carly, and then our admin assistant Jess. We are one position down at the moment. We are currently seeking a full-time program coordinator, so that person would be the fourth member of our full-time team. When I got here and we started kind of building a new team, it was a little bit daunting, as it can be in a new community for recreation. Recreation means so many things to so many people, so kind of a where do you start situation, and realizing that there really weren't mission, vision, values on paper. We didn't really have a direction as a department. So I connected with the strategic plan, and then when Carly and the program coordinator at the time was with us, and Jess and some of our other staff members, we really sat down and dug into what does recreation in Shrewsbury mean, what direction should we be taking, not only as a department, but as a piece of the community.
It was very important to us to make sure that we were really thinking about what values we want to highlight. Laurel and I had a lot of conversations about what really stuck out to us. Inclusion is incredibly important to us, and we'll speak more about our Rec Connect program coming up. But these are just a few of our different pieces.
Yeah, we won't read them word
Yeah.
for word, that's very wordy, but you can always find them on our recreation registration site. We reference them quite often as we make decisions on what to put our energy into and offer to the community, so we wanted to share that with you.
And I think too, we've talked a lot about keeping these pieces just to hold ourselves as a department accountable, so that we always have something to look back on to make sure that we're keeping ourselves on track as we grow and develop as a team and serve our community. So my role was introduced as, I know that the community was requesting for more events. And so I was really excited to join this team. And we've been talking a lot about what the future of events look like in our community. And our first conversation was about just really acknowledging that there are some events that are really historic to the town, really important to our town's culture, and we really want to maintain those particular pieces. One of them being our Veterans Day ceremony, our Memorial Day parade, our summer concert series, just things that are really integral to who we are as the town of Shrewsbury. And we also had a lot of discussions about new events and what those can look like. And so we're going to be introducing some exciting new opportunities. We're doing a trivia night. We have something actually happening right now in the Senior Center. It's a cookie decorating event. And yeah, we're looking forward to introducing more musical events to our community. And so through all of this, it's important to us to ensure that we're really connecting with the community through all of these opportunities. And so our team has been out there really having face-to-face conversations, learning more about our Shrewsbury residents, what they're hoping for, listening to their feedback, and kind of figuring out ways to incorporate that feedback to continue to enhance our programming and events. Something else that's really important to us in our events is enhancing leisure education. So we'll talk about this a little bit more in the future, but I think oftentimes when people hear the word recreation, they think sports. And so we're really here to let the community know that recreation is so much more than just athletics, and really highlighting that for our community members. And another significant goal of ours is really to just build relationships with our community members, and we're also introducing a scholarship program to help people who may not have the opportunity to join us. Financially, we're going to be rolling that out very soon so that it's more accessible. So, due to all these awesome new events that we're planning, we have started introducing our community partner booklet. And so essentially it's our sponsorship program to really support all these initiatives that we're starting. And so we're currently communicating with a lot of local businesses. Below are people who have signed on to support us so far in 2024 for events. And we really perceive ourselves as the bridge helping businesses connect with our community members and introducing them, and so they can have those conversations, find out how they can be part of each other's lives or business, and how they can kind of all just help each other thrive. So.
I'll speak about the programming piece. So we talked already about recreation. There are letters all over the place, Justin. I'm not sure what happened. Excuse the messy slides. They were not as messy earlier. Recreation is more than sports, so we really are putting an emphasis on looking at our programming gaps and seeing, what are the ages and the abilities and the interests that we're really not hitting, because there's such a wide variety of opportunity and interests within our community. So we really want to highlight that we realize we're not really hitting all the marks for everybody right now, but really digging in and making sure that we align with our mission, vision, values, the culture of our community, and start offering a little bit more for more folks. There are, just like events, those tried and true favorite programs that have been running for a number of years that people love, and they get really nervous when there's new people in town and they don't want you to change anything. Certainly not looking to take anything off the table, but really making sure things are running appropriately, that they're equitable, that they're affordable, that they're meeting the needs of the folks that are participating, and they are open to people who are wanting to try new things. They're not exclusive programs and things like that. Partnering with neighboring communities. So we've been really lucky to have some neighboring communities, mostly Northborough and Southborough, kind of reach out to us and say, hey, we know that you have a background in therapeutic recreation and supporting adaptive and inclusive recreation programs. We've had a lot of people asking about that over the last several years, but we're really not sure how to get that started. Can we work together to make sure we're providing adaptive and inclusive opportunities for people with diverse abilities in our communities? And I think we'd be stronger together. And I was so excited to have them approach us and start that conversation. So we've created a tri-town partnership for that purpose called Rec Connect, and we've already started some adaptive programming. It's going really well. We're really excited about it, bringing some people together from different communities, having family connection opportunities, athletics. We're going to start some outings for teens and young adults because that's more fun. That's what they want to do. That's what I want to do. So we're going to make sure everything is staff supported, age appropriate, and really engaging, and start down that road as well. So we're excited about that. Working to kind of build out our options, as I mentioned, by hiring new vendors and additional local instructors, redesigning programs like our summer playground program to really meet the new needs of our evolving and growing community.
So just kind of in summary, as we are looking to our mission, vision, and values and holding ourselves accountable to that, we also referenced the different strategic outcome areas in the strategic plan, and the top 3 that really resonated with our department are engaged and connected, exceptional, and thriving. And so under the engaged and connected piece, as we said, it's really important to us to make sure that we are building those relationships with our community members, both residents as well as businesses, kind of creating a bridge between all of us, and also connecting with our sponsors, people who are interested in supporting what we're doing, and letting the community know that their health and wellness is also important to their business. And are making sure that we're providing opportunities for all. Our Reconnect program, as Laurel spoke about, as well as another thing that we're currently working on is establishing a volunteer group. So we know that events and programs cannot run without the help of many, and so we're really excited right now. We have a great group of volunteers in our Reconnect Adaptive Sports program, and so we're really hopeful and excited seeing that energy that they're bringing to that program, to see what else our amazing residents can do working with us on our team.
In the zone of exceptional, we really try to remain mindful and of our finances, really fiscally responsible. They are community dollars, and when people trust us to sign up for programs, they're trusting us with their free time, their children, and their money. So that's really not something we take lightly, and we take that responsibility really seriously. So we do a lot of professional development. We're really involved in a Massachusetts and the National Park and Rec Associations, and we try to stay up on best practices and trends and all of the things that people want to see, and we make sure that we are kind of having a well-rounded view of recreation and things that we can bring back to our community. Considering the future of our department and honoring past offerings, we spoke about that, and providing strong customer service. You know, sometimes people are a little bit disconnected with town departments, but we really want people to pick up the phone and talk to us, and when we go out to events, we chat with everybody about what they're looking for, and if they have ideas, or if that didn't work, what do you think might work, and things like that. So really, you know, building the relationships that we need in order for our department to feel like a comfortable place for people. And then thriving, making sure people feel safe when they come to our programs and events is a really important piece of the puzzle. Enhancing people's opportunities for building social connections through recreation, not only just like the folks you might see at volleyball every Monday night, but coming and meeting new people who share your interest at events, or kind of, we talk about like niche opportunities, maybe like puzzle programs or something like that that you wouldn't necessarily think of, but that could bring people together. And then actively providing numerous and varied opportunities to engage in recreational pursuits. It's about what people are interested in. It's never okay for us to sit in our office and say, this is what you guys think is fun. You know? So we definitely want to use community feedback to program forward. So that was a little bit, or a lot in a little bit of time, but that's really what we've been up to and how we're thinking about recreation and moving forward as a department. So we welcome any questions or comments you might have for us.
Thank you so much. That was a great presentation because it's just enough and not too much, and gives us an opportunity to really get an overview of the changes and the things that you've been doing in the recreation department. I'm sure that there's comments or questions from board members, so we'll open that up.
Did I cut you off?
Whichever one.
Just a comment. I don't know if you saw our recent select board roundtable. It is
Sorry, I missed it.
must-see TV.
It's gripping television.
But we gave you a big shout out because we do recognize all of the work that you're doing, and it's extensive and it's really appreciated. And when I pulled in tonight, I was like, why are all these cars here? Clearly they're not here for our meeting. But thank you for all you're doing. I think it's made a really positive impact in Shrewsbury.
Thank you.
I'll repeat some of the things I said on the select board roundtable. I'm absolutely blown away by everything you guys have brought into our community in the last year. I have 3 little kids, and you know they're still summer camp age and things like that. And I saw a post on Facebook, which your social media like activity has been awesome for my peers. Everyone's on Facebook and Instagram and things like that. So seeing those things like pop up on my feed, I went in and looked at it, and I was absolutely blown away by what you're offering for summer camp. It's so different. There's so many offerings, like so many like niche interests for kids. It's not just do you want to go out and kick a ball around? Not all kids are interested in sports, and there's all these different offerings, and I was just so excited about it. And I see conversations on social media, people saying like, oh, my kids had done the parks camp, a few years ago. What are some other suggestions? And I see that and I'm like, take a look at it again. It's totally different. And there's so many new offerings. But I just love the energy and the enthusiasm that you've brought, raising little kids in town. And I have friends that live in Northborough, and they always had so many offerings at Northborough Rec, and to see some of that like coming into Shrewsbury now and the partnerships, it's really exciting. I also have a couple friends that have kids with special needs, and one of the moms recently, I had a conversation with her about the adaptive programs that you guys are bringing to town, and it really is so meaningful for parents with kids with special needs. As a parent, every parent struggles to keep their kids busy, but when you have a kid with special needs, it's so much more challenging and so much more complex, and to bring these programs like into our town is incredibly meaningful. So thank you guys for the good work. I'm so thrilled. It's amazing. I love the food truck nights and seeing like the whole community's out there, and it's really great. So keep it up.
Thank you so much.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I'll just echo the sentiments that you've been hearing, and you can see it really in the work and the attendance, and people are happy, and it's just such a great time. So Laurel, Carly, and Jess, and just the rest of the team, thank you for everything. Really appreciate your commitment to equity as well, as Michelle, was referencing. It's such a critical thing, and building these partnerships and making sure that we're connecting with not only other communities but just individuals within our community is such an important thing for our quality of life here. So really, thank you for everything.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
For people that are watching at home and might not know what adaptive programs are, could you just explain a little bit about what your programs, like what that means?
Yeah. Adaptive programs are specifically designed for folks with diverse abilities, meaning like typically cognitive disabilities, but also physical or social emotional disabilities. We talk a lot about invisible disabilities. You may not be able to see something on a person, but they may be able to be successful in a different way than other folks. So whether we have higher staff ratios, we have a specific structure for the program so that it's not only accessible, but people know what to expect every single time. There's no kind of surprises. We have volunteers supporting so that people feel really comfortable with the buddy that they've made a relationship with. Maybe the equipment is different. If it's a kickball that's rolling too fast and it's too bouncy, we use a different ball that doesn't bounce and it rolls slower so that people can access the program in a way that's successful for them. For example, adaptive tennis in the fall, we had a few children who had never stepped foot on a tennis court before, and their goal for success for that program was to not leave the tennis court. Mm-hmm. And that was really wonderful for them, and their family was really excited. And that was success for them, while success for another person might be like actually getting the ball over the net by the end of the program. And for another person, it might be joining a competitive team. So we have all of that different type of kind of success and build in for that as far as meeting their needs and communicating with families. We have a participant support questionnaire that we send out to families who register for adaptive programs, where we ask a lot of strengths-based questions and have conversations with the participant and or their family or caregiver and say, what works for you? We're not here to reinvent the wheel. We're not here to pretend we know what's best for you, but we're here to support you in the ways that you need to be successful in programming. So those conversations, those connections, we have a lot of visual schedules and a lot of not only visual aids, but like we model everything before we do it. And so there's additional steps to put in place to make sure that a program is adaptive and not just kind of throw everybody into the mix, because that might not work for folks.
Great, thank you. I noticed on your social media that it's being called the Summer Market now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So we're kind of reimagining, rebranding what used to be our farmers market. It's now called the Summer Market. And before I got here, I know Laurel and Jess had done a lot of thinking about kind of the structure of it. And so we've had a lot of conversations about bringing our market vendors and blending them with our food trucks to be on the same night. So we want to bring, increase the excitement, the energy, provide people with more exciting opportunities. And so we're blending them. They're going to be on Thursday evenings now. And we're also, actually, I'm very excited. Just before this meeting, I got my first email. We're also going to be bringing in acoustic performers to add a music element. And
move
so
out front, so we're very visible.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
So we're going to be moving. We'll be over towards the parking lot between Town Hall and the police department. The food trucks will still be lined up in the front where they were last year. So yeah, a lot of our vendors were saying that they wanted increased visibility. So again, we took that feedback and had a lot of conversations about how we could try to make that happen moving forward. And so we've gotten a lot of really positive feedback from vendors. They're really excited. And yeah, we're just hoping to kind of create a more energetic and lively space and kind of make it a destination spot on Thursday nights in Shrewsbury.
The place to be.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
Mhm.
And everyone's heard it here first.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Now we'll see if anyone watches this based on what kind of chatter there is on social media about the date and time change. But I think it's going to be great. And to have that ability to use the beautiful new green space in front of Town Hall and utilize the benches and the shade of the trees, that'll be
It'll be great.
really wonderful to see. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Well, thanks so much for the update and for all that you're doing for all of our residents.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for inviting
Nice to
us.
see you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Here.
Oh, thank you. Yes.
Okay, that brings us to item number 8, which is a meeting with Gosia Stolarska of Solid Waste and Recycling Program Manager and Casella Waste Systems. And I believe Taylor Galusha, our communications coordinator, is also going to be joining us. So come on up, bring your props, bring the chairs. We'll make room for all of you.
Alex,
Thank you.
All right. If you wouldn't mind introducing yourselves just for people who are watching at home.
Yes. Good evening, everyone. I'm Gosia Stolarska. I'm the Solid Waste and Recycling Program Manager for the town. And here's Kyle.
My name's Kyle Orr. I'm the Market Area Manager for Casella Waste.
And I'm Taylor Galusha. I'm the Communications Coordinator out of the Manager's Office.
Excellent. Well, we are very much looking forward to your presentation and learning a little bit more about the new trash program.
Thank you. So with overview, we would like to let residents know what's been happening in the last few months behind the scene, what can they expect in the next few months, especially that we will have a new hauler coming over July, and what exciting engagement opportunities are coming to with the next few months. What's new in the program? July 1st, Casella Waste is taking over the solid waste and recycling program. They will be our new hauler. With the hauler changes, we will be making the change to recycling program. There's no more sorting, so we will be introducing single stream recycling. Recycling will be still weekly. We will be also introducing the recycling carts, one like you can see right here, and all of them will be 65 gallon, and those will be delivered to each household participating in curbside collection. And one more new thing that it's coming is we will be utilizing the OpenGov platform to so residents can purchase bulky waste sticker through that platform instead of going to the store. As I mentioned in the previous slide, there will be change to recycling program, and residents can expect cart delivery between June 3rd and June 28th. We will continue our pay-as-you-throw program, and we realize that there are some challenges with bag quality that we continue to work with the vendor on improvement. Yesterday we met with the vendor, and we will be increasing the thickness of the bags, so they will be a little thicker, and hopefully they're not going to be breaking as easily as they do right now. And we will continue exploring other options for the bags.
So first I'd like to thank you guys for giving us an opportunity to come and talk to you and tell you a little bit about Casella Waste and who we are. So Casella Waste Systems was founded in Rutland, Vermont in 1975 by two brothers, Doug and John Casella. Since that time it's grown to over 4,000 employees. John Casella still serves as our president and CEO. It's now a publicly traded company. We have facilities all throughout New England, New York, as well as Pennsylvania, Delaware, and Maryland. Here in Massachusetts, we have 9 different facilities. I'm responsible for all the facilities in central and western Massachusetts, which is where we will be serving the town of Shrewsbury out of our hauling division in Auburn, Massachusetts. So we have hauling divisions, we have post-collection disposal sites, as well as material recovery facilities where we will be sorting and processing the recyclable materials. So in Auburn, we have about 70 employees out of that division. We also serve the communities of Holden, Sterling, Southbridge, Worcester, and Auburn. So in Massachusetts, we handle approximately 1 million tons. That number's grown a little bit since that slide was was made, but about 1 million tons a year. We have over 150 trucks and a little over 250,000 customers now with Shrewsbury coming aboard. So.
And we would like to let you know a little bit more about the recycling carts. As I mentioned previously, they will be coming to every household that participates in curbside collection. That is all the single-family houses, 2-family and 3-family units. And the carts that we chose are the 64 gallons. They have large wheels, easy to move around. The body of the cart will be the dark blue and will have Town of Shrewsbury logo on the side. The lid will be lighter blue color, just like this one, and will have recycling label on it that will let you know what to put in the recycling bin and what shouldn't go over there. And each cart will be equipped with RFID tags. Those are radio frequency identification tags. We will not utilize them right now. However, in the future, with technology, we will be able to track weight of each recycling cart. The carts will be owned by the Town of Shrewsbury. In case of move out from the property, the carts should stay at the property and they should be used only for recyclable materials. The carts placement is very important, as hauler will be using automatic arm to empty those buckets. They have to be 3 feet from the curb and 3 feet from any other obstacles, so that will include trash bag or fire hydrants, or if there is a car parked in front of it, that could be a potential issue for emptying recycling bin. Want to talk a little
Yeah,
bit more about
so, I'll talk a little bit about our customer care team. So our customer care team is headquartered in Rutland, Vermont. They will be taking any of the calls that come from the town. We have 74 customer care reps there and 6 team managers, so about 80 people that handle all of the calls. The hours of operation is 7 to 5, Monday through Friday, and then 8 to noon on Saturday. There is also an after-hours answering service in case of emergencies. That team in 2023, they averaged 11.7 seconds speed to answer from the time that the call came in. So pretty proud of that wait time. I'll also talk a little bit about the Recollect app. So that's an app that's going to be available to residents that they'll be able to download. Through that app, they'll be able to see any information on the town's program, what is and is not acceptable. They'll also be able to schedule bulk pickups, log customer complaints in the event of a missed pickup, as well as we will be able to communicate out if we ever have a message that we need to, as an example, weather delay. We'll be able to push a message out to the residents notifying everybody.
So what's staying the same, residents should expect the same pickup day. We're not planning any changes to the routes. Pay-as-you-throw program will stay the same, and we will continue our current bulk pickup, which will be all the burnable items, including sofas, chairs, any wooden items. Additional services provided by Casella would be white good pickup. This is something that we currently offer as well. Casella will be also offering mattress curbside collection. Currently, we have this service provided by an individual contractor, and we will continue with the curbside yard waste pickups. Same as last year, it was, I think, taken very well by residents. We had 12 weeks of curbside pickup. That's going to continue. This year, we added additional drop-off day in December. After the yard waste at the curb finishes, we will have additional drop-off in December, just in case of any extra cleanups. And
Yeah, so Gosha, myself, and our team have been working to create meaningful opportunities for engagement with this change, because we know it affects everyone's daily lives when your trash does or doesn't get picked up. So we're offering several opportunities between now and the end of June for the community to learn more about Casella and the recycling program updates. If you got your newsletter in the mail, there's a nice little section about the updates and about Gosha. where you can go and sign up for different informational sessions that we'll be offering in person and virtually throughout the months of March, April, May, and June. So basically all the way up until Casella is actually out on the roads picking up people's trash and recyclings. There's 2 different format options, so if you only have 5 minutes but want to come in and ask a quick question, we have a drop-in sessions available both virtually and in person. So if you're on your way to run errands and want to stop by Town Hall really quick to ask Gosia something about the recycling carts, that option's there for you. But if you're more into formal presentations with a Q&A session, we're doing those as well. We just wanted to offer as many different opportunities and formats to fit people's lives, various times of day, various days of the week, just to try and meet as many people where they are. We've already had 81 residents register for these sessions, which was super exciting, and a lot of those happened in the first 2 days that the newsletter went out. So if you are interested in registering, you can scan the QR code in your newsletter or in our monthly brochure that goes out on the website, or check out the website. There's the sign up link as well. And we are definitely going to be attending a lot of community events from now until June. So we're just really excited to get to talk with residents about these changes and answer any questions that they might have.
And there's more coming up. We would like residents to be on the lookout for mailer coming with yard waste calendar. We expect that one to be in the mailboxes in the mid-March. We will be also sending recycling card information that is coming around beginning of April. And in June, we will be sending our regular yearly calendar for recycling. It's going to be a little different because we will not be doing A and B weeks for paper and plastic, but it will give us an opportunity to include some helpful information. And we will be also sending more information on specific dates for card delivery. Residents will also have an opportunity to take a look at those cards. We will have one of those cards here in Town Hall. So if someone wants to come in, check how light it is, if it's easy to move around, please stop by. They will be available. One will be available. Starting July, we would like residents to utilize customer service provided by Casella. As Kyle mentioned, 11.7 seconds to answer call is great, and we believe that it's going to be great resource. They will be able to help with answering recycling questions, scheduling bulk pickups. Hopefully they're not going to have to report many missed pickups, but that is an option as well. And here we have the information, phone number, email address. That information is also included on yard waste calendar and will be included in the regular calendar in June. I can be also reached Monday through Friday through phone or email with any program questions. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any questions? Go ahead.
Thank you. Appreciate all the information. One of the most important things is come July 1st that no one realizes a change happened. 5 years ago, we learned the hard way that residents realized all of a sudden a change in service, and early on we were fighting a battle where perception became reality. So early on with a new vendor, wanting it to be seamless, it became very challenging early on, and that was something that the perception did continue for a period of time, even though the number of calls that came in were similar, if not less than the previous hauler. So that is very important. All of this information is great, the 81 people that registered 2 days after, but the most important thing, understanding all the information that's been presented and all the opportunities that are available. Again, emphasize enough how important it is that we perform during the first couple of weeks, particularly based on what we learned last time. One of the questions that I have, I just have a couple. The first one is the fleet ready to go? So I know Yard Waste did a good job.
Yep.
But come July 1st, is the fleet ready or being made now and ready to hit the ground running, staff allocated? Is that all set, or do you see any impediments to that?
Yeah, so we're working through that process right now of pulling the fleet together. So to get new trucks, you're looking at like 12 to 18 months. So the time frame to get new trucks and start by July 1st wasn't available to us. So what we're doing is we're pulling in fleet from other sites throughout our footprint, which we are working on now. We've got 2 trucks here already that we're working on, and then we're going to be pulling in 2 to 3 more as well. As far as staffing, we have already started to staff for this. So we have hired 1 driver that's already dedicated to Shrewsbury. He's going through our onboarding and training process now. But yeah, we intend to be hiring now. We're not going to wait till June to try to hire the people for this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good, no, I appreciate that. And then recycling carts. So everyone will get those. Once they're out to residents, do we have any data about after that? Some bins are gonna get lost unless we have the equivalent. I know that sometime we'll be able to get data about weights. Don't know if it's gonna be like LoJack, where if someone takes it and you can find where it is. I don't know if that's a resource or even time intensive, really worth it. But do we have history that, okay, these bins go out to residents. After any given year, X number we lose. Do we have any idea on history what that would be? Or at all? Or
Deliveries?
Sure. No, I don't have any data on how many get lost. When they're delivered, they all do have a serial number on them. Okay. And there is a log that's completed on what cart went to what address, right? And if there is a change to that, then we can report that serial number so that we always keep that log up to date on which house has which cart. But no, I don't have any data on how many disappear.
yeah, I'm just thinking for future costs in terms of as the bins go and if it's 2% or 1%. And then just related to that, a lot of real estate transactions. How do we communicate, or something to think about is how do we communicate to new residents? These bins go with the house, right? You expect them to go in the garage. But what's the best way to communicate to someone new in town, no idea what they do, and they may have a bin in their garage or they may not? Is there a way to get that information as people are registering for services in town to make that instant connection so they're not guessing? It's not a today thing, but is there some way to connect that as well? Because once the bin's there, in theory or in reality, it's gonna stay in their garage, you hope.
Yes.
The only thing that stays with the house other than appliances is the bin there, but so they know what to do with it. If there's a way to make that connection up front, make it seamless for the residents when they come in.
So we don't require residents to sign up for services. Those are, for trash and recycling is technically service that it's performed no matter what. It's not like water and sewer that they have to call in or change the name on the account. Usually when someone moves in, I receive a call. They ask me questions. What's going on? What do I do with recycling? How do I purchase pay-as-you-throw bags? So that's my opportunity to let them know about that bin. We could definitely probably talk to water and sewer department when final bills are requested for sales, that they can mention that there is a bin and that's going to stay with the property.
That's good. So just a final comment, as I said at the beginning, appreciate all the opportunities. You know, you learn a lot when you roll things out. We learned a lot from 5 years ago. You've taken all of that and addressed everything here. It just, as I mentioned, just come July 1st, the best thing would be that no one notices any difference. Or, wow, this is great. You know, it's an uptick, but it's not that, and that's what I expect it to be. So thanks for the communication and the opportunities, and look forward to residents having the opportunity from March, April, May, June to continuously ask questions, and going forward, expect it to be seamless. So good work.
Thank you.
Go ahead. May I just ask a question about the sensitivity of the bin placement when you're like 3 feet from the curb, not near anything else? My mind was like, and related to that, what actions you take during a transition like this so that, you know, you don't just leave residents high and dry?
So one of the information being sent to residents will include cart placement. And I don't know exactly if the driver is going to measure if that's the 3 feet from the curb, but just the general information that it's not in front of any obstacles, or there is no car park in front of the cart, or residents are not placing the cart in front of fire hydrants. which they shouldn't be doing this anyway right now. But sending that information.
So if I could just
Yes, go
expand a
ahead.
little bit on that. So, right, these are new for this community, right? And we understand that, and we're not, you know, day one, week one, expecting everybody to have their bin 100% properly placed, right? But ultimately, they're on wheels, and if we need to get out and move it a little bit to get it done, that's what we'll do. We do have stickers that we can leave behind, even after we empty the can, that have different options that the driver can check off. You know, your bin was too close to your mailbox, whatever the case may be. So we would leave those behind, but especially initially, to your point, right, we don't want to rock the boat and create a bunch of phone calls for everybody and start off on a wrong foot. So ultimately, I guess to answer your question, they're on wheels, and we'll do our best to make sure for at least the first you know, couple months that we're giving a lot of leeway on anything before we leave it behind.
Thank you. May I ask one follow-up? Are there any areas of town where we do have to be concerned about there just being obstacles, like there, I don't know which streets, if any, we allow parking on?
Yeah, go straight.
So, like, what do you do in those areas?
Same thing, right? You know, we service areas where it's a one-way street and there's cars parked, right? If there's nowhere for them to put the bin that's not going to be impeded by the car, we're going to get out and move it.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
I have a bunch of questions. Sure. So I was really concerned with the impact of switching to these large bins for people, you know, elderly people, people with mobility issues, anything like that. I have a 90-year-old grandmother that lives independently. She's in her home that she's been in since 1955, and she uses a cane, and I called her, and they use this for both trash and recycling bins in the town that she lives in, and I called her and I asked her, you know, how does this work for you? Like, is it challenging? Do you struggle with it? And granted, this is not going to be the same for everybody, but she actually said it's not a problem. Even with, you know, needing to use a cane and things like that, she doesn't have an issue bringing the cart out. So I know that that's a concern of people in the community, and I know everybody's circumstances will be different, but you know, my grandma says it's okay. So I just wanted to share that, and I hope that a lot of people have the same experience, that it's not an issue. So I have a couple questions. You mentioned we're going to be using OpenGov for bulky waste stickers. Is that going to be the only way you can purchase them, or can you still purchase them in stores?
Residents still be able to purchase at the stores. Right now, they can purchase stickers through Waste Management as well. So we want to continue that, but we would like to utilize the OpenGov platform.
How would it work for people using OpenGov? Like, would they get something that they would print and then like tape onto the bag, or onto the bulky waste item?
So right now we use OpenGov for mattress drop-off. After residents pay, they can there's a ticket that they can print. Sometimes they bring it to the drop-off. It's not required. I usually meet with one person so I know who's coming. But that will be the same option. They can either print it, or they could always stop by at the town hall and we will print them for the resident.
Okay, great. Can I have a few more questions? On the as far as, you know, the like John had mentioned, you know, a transition to a new system, and there are going to be people with questions and things like that. Will we have, you know, sort of an FAQ sheet that could be delivered with the bins, or you mentioned maybe including it with some bills that go out, just some like frequently asked questions, like, you know, and visuals on placement for folks who may have, you know, language barriers and things like that, and having an FAQ, you know, section on the website for trash. So
Yeah, so when the carts get delivered, residents will get like a little baggie, and I'll have like the FAQs, a welcome letter kind of overviewing the process, an information card that will have the information about the placement of the bins, and then some sort of calendar magnet.
And
Maybe.
definitely we'll keep the frequently asked questions on the website.
We'll update the recycling section to reflect the new process and everything.
okay, all right. And I just have one more question. As far as the size of the bins go, what happens, like, you know, in my grandmother's example, they actually have the larger, I think they're like 96 gallons, so they're much larger than what we'll have here. And she, you know, lives independently, like on her, you know, alone, and she never fills it. Is there a smaller option for people that may not need as large of a bin? And is there a larger option for, you know, bigger families or, you know, people that like, you know, heavier recycling or do a lot of online shopping and have a lot of cardboard, things like that? What happens if you're larger than, if your weekly recycling is more than what would fit there?
So we are offering only the 64-gallon carts right now. The town received funding from 2 grants to purchase this size. If there is a situation where residents can't accept this cart, we will not force them to do so. However, we want to remind everyone that recycling is mandatory. If they would like to purchase a smaller cart that is compatible with the automatic car arm, they are welcome to do so. However, we would like residents to try those carts first before saying I don't want it, because that might be a perfect size for someone. We will consider, and that's something that we still have to talk about larger carts. If residents wish to use their own carts, we talked about it. That would be an option. However, we will not be able to take full responsibilities for damages of those carts. We don't anticipate anything like that happening. However, things like that happen sometimes. Since we don't have exact replacement for resident-owned card, we would prefer residents use the one that we provide.
Okay. All right, thank you.
So if you currently have purchased from the town recycle bins, what should we do with them? Is there going to be a way to recycle those?
Yes, we will have few events where residents can drop off unwanted recycling carts that they have right now. Some residents want to keep those, that it's perfectly fine as well, but we will organize events where those can be recycled.
And can they be anything you're using for recycling, or does it have to be specifically the ones you purchased from the town of Shrewsbury to recycle them?
Since we don't require only town of Shrewsbury carts right now, they can be any carts that residents are using.
Okay, that's great. I'm really glad to hear that there's the Saturday customer service hours. You know, sometimes on a holiday, Friday gets bumped to Saturday, and then the pickup doesn't happen and there's no one to call. So I was really glad to see that that's happening. And I just want to reiterate what my colleague said about, you know, the first weeks being so important. I think the reason we ran into such an issue with the previous hauler is because it's a holiday week. And so it throws off everybody to begin with, right? It's a trash delay. So just being mindful of that and understanding that that's going to happen. People are going to forget to put their trash out, and you know, whatever we can do to be prepared for the situation. I'm sure it's something that you're thinking about and have dealt with in the past, to make the rollout great, because we want, you know, your experience in Shrewsbury to be a positive one. The yard waste pickup has been, you know, just a huge improvement. You know, hats off to the solid waste, you know, department, the people that are working on it. You know, it's just, it doesn't seem like a big thing, but it is a big thing to residents, right? Like, when they think about what's the most important thing to residents, is that your trash gets picked up and your snow gets plowed. Like, those are the two things that people are really looking for just on a day-to-day basis. And when it doesn't happen, it's just the most frustrating thing. So I really do appreciate, I know, Gosha, that you take the time personally to make sure when someone calls that their materials are collected, and I'm sure that the partnership will continue with Casella. Any other questions or comments? Okay, and people watching, it's July 1st, like this isn't happening before then, like you're not getting a cart tomorrow. July, yeah.
Sorry, can I just go back to your question about the capacity in the carts?
Sure, yeah.
Just on the larger cart front, you know, there's always an option to use your current existing bin or any other trash can, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be this. So if you have a party one week and you have overflow and you put it in another bin, we're not going to take it.
Okay.
But just also, you know, most of the communities that we serve currently, they have 96-gallon recycled carts, and they're serviced every other week.
Okay.
And so now you're going to have a 65 picked up every week. So I don't envision a ton of capacity issues unless it's kind of like what we're talking about, you know, a party, a holiday, something like that. But like I said, we're not going to leave it behind if it's in a different container.
All right, that's great. Yeah, that's really what I was thinking, like, you know, after Christmas or after a big party and things like that. You know, if you get sick and you're doing a lot of online shopping and you have a ton of boxes, like what happens then? So, thank you.
I think we still have the cardboard dumpster, right,
Yes.
at South Street too, for, you know, lots of cardboard can be placed there as well.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
The change.
All right, you're up. Next item on our agenda is under financial business, and it's fiscal projection 1. The manager's going to present the FY25 initial budget recommendation.
Just for this. You weren't here last year.
All right, it's my annual stand at the podium. All right, I'm gonna share my screen if I. All right. So good evening. It's my pleasure to present the fiscal year 25 fiscal projection 1, which is our recommended budget at the outset that will go through the process. Maybe be changed over time, but this is the version of the budget gets the most scrutiny and has had the most work done on it so far. So first, I just want to thank not only the board for your input into the priorities and the policies that go into creating this budget, the department heads for all the work and staff for the work that they've done in developing the budget. But just extra special attention goes to Assistant Town Manager for Finance and Administration, David Snowden, who's in charge of the entire budget process. I just get to stand here and talk about it. Alex Martinez, who is our management analyst, who probably has the most hours logged in on this budget. And throughout the budget process, as we met with all the department heads, we were supported throughout that process by Human Resources Director Christina Ordung and Assistant Town Manager for Operations Keith Baldinger. So a lot of hands go into creating this document. It's always the most important policy document that we make. It's where the rubber meets the road. It's really our clear intentions of what we will be doing for the upcoming fiscal year. So fiscal year, like the new trash and recycling program, will start July 1, not tomorrow. So I'll talk a little bit about the process that we go through and where we're gonna come out at the end. So I mentioned the select board sets policies and priorities in the early fall. We use that information to develop specific guidance for the town manager's office on submission criteria and format and content. Department heads do the bulk of the work, and it is their charge of tying their department's work to the strategic plan, which is where the select board starts from. With that information, we have detailed budget reviews, and then we generate the town manager's recommended budget, which we're going to talk about this evening, also known as fiscal projection 1. From this point forward, the budget goes to the Finance Committee, and it is reviewed in a series of public hearings, and ultimately will end up before the legislative body of town meeting on May 20th this coming year. We encourage all residents to engage throughout the process, especially at the budget hearings of the Finance Committee. That is the best opportunity to be able to talk at the most granular level of detail of the budget. It's a comfortable setting in this room. Folks can come and ask questions about the process or about individual numbers or figures or concepts that we're using throughout the budget process. So it's much earlier in the process. It's actually where the budget can be most easily shaped, well before town meeting. So the list that I have up here is how we're going to work through the budget tonight, and we'll get to the numbers at the end. But I wanted to review the financial policies and that process that we go through. We look at the lenses, and it gets a little bit clearer when we build the budget through the policies into the commitments that are associated with the 2021 override. It gets another layer of refinement when we apply the principles and the directions under the strategic plan. Revenue brings into light what we can do and what we can't do. And then, of course, we finally get down into the actual numbers and meet the service needs of the residents, which ties it all together. So I'll go through those things. So I'm not going to go through all the policies. These are reviewed by the select board normally sometime at the end of October or early November, as they were done this year. It really sets the key blocks of our financial management system that we utilize throughout the course of the year, how much money we need to have in reserve, what our unappropriated fund balances need to be, how we, and if we would ever spend those, how we'll prepare the budget, how we'll plan for long-term investments, and how we'll manage our debt that may be associated with any long-term investments. One of the most critical documents that we've used in recent years are commitments that this board has made to the community with their approval of the May 4th, 2021 override. And there are 5 key principles that are laid out here on this slide that we think about when we're developing the budget. And this is at the greatest level, the 30 to 50,000 foot level. We're exercising fiscal discipline. That means we're using the revenues that we have available for us, ensuring service levels are met through quality services, and always being advocates for the residents throughout the process. We certainly ask residents to engage with us, but we're always looking at this through the lens of what's the tax bill impact going to be? Is the community able to sustain this level of funding as we move forward and meet that commitment that was kind of the broadest commitment that was made, which is we won't be back to the community to ask for any other extraordinary funding for operational purposes for at least 4 fiscal years. Now, fiscal year 25 is the 4th fiscal year associated with this override commitment, and I'll give the board an update this evening on where we actually stand. So this allows us all to tie into those maximum thresholds of expenditures for municipal operations, educational operations, which I'll touch on but won't go into the details. Those were handled by Dr. Sawyer at the school committee meeting. And of course, this all allows us to maintain a strong financial position, which for us in Shrewsbury means maintaining a AAA bond rating with healthy reserve levels and strong performing investments. So where are we with that override? So we're in a very strong position, a much better position than we thought we would have been in May of 2021. Very much due to the fact that we followed the playbook that we laid out in 2021. So what I have on the screen here is the highest level revenue expenditures that we have updated as recently as the beginning of February, and where I think we project out. And the best news of this is that we're forecasting level budgets for the duration of the time frame that's shown on the screen. Now, it's important to note that we can't wait until the last year that the budget would be balanced to consider a conversation about another override and determining if that's the policy direction that we need to go in. Basically, if we wait until fiscal year 28, as is shown on the screen, that's too late. There would be a catastrophic impact if voters didn't agree with the position that we set forth and we needed to make changes to that. So what I can clearly say this evening is that we will get 6 years rather than 4 years out of this override because of the steadfast commitment to the policies that we put in place in May of 2021. So 2 additional years than we thought we actually would have. So what has allowed that to happen behind the scenes? Just really stronger revenue than we ever anticipated. We, of course, always develop a conservative revenue model, which allows us to meet the service level demands of residents, but ensures that have sufficient funding to come in to build our reserves, our rainy day fund, our stabilization balances. And what that has allowed us to do is to build a little less than 5% of the fiscal year 25 proposed operating budget in the override stabilization fund. That puts us in a really good position. But when the budget is growing and total expenditures are nearing or exceeding $200,000 a year, it's still a small percentage, and year-over-year increases would be quickly gobbled up, so to speak, by that level of funding, even in that reserve fund. So we're in a really good position. We have a great percentage, but we are going to start to draw down upon that per the plan as we move into fiscal year 26 and 27. That's the only way this works. That's the stabilizing part of this model that we implemented in 2021. So the strategic plan, I know there's a lot there, kind of a little humbled to go after the good presentations that were already made this evening by town leadership, their references back to the strategic plan and how we're putting this all together. So the budget, of course, ties it all together. So every aspect of the strategic plan is in play when we develop the budget. And all those strategic outcome areas and initiatives that we set forth just a little over a year ago and actually enacted for the fiscal year 24 budget are up on the screen. And I'm going to do my best to not only shine a light on the work that has been done throughout the course of fiscal year 24, since the board put these strategic outcome areas in place, but also how we think expenditures in fiscal year 25 will continue to move us forward and follow the compass that is set up through the strategic plan. So what do the numbers look like? So I'm going to talk about revenues to start with. We always reflect back. The revenue manual comes out in October. It's our first real look at, a truly historic look at our revenues and using that information, what we project that we're going to have in the following fiscal year. It is a bit of a challenge, right? So we're in October. We were in October of 2023, really trying to project what revenues are we going to receive from July 1, 2024, the whole way through June 30th of 2025. So if we were, that's where the conservative aspect of our fiscal projections need to come into play, because we're really looking out over 20 months in advance of when we're actually going to receive the revenues. So we have identified $183.7 million that will be available for utilization from a number of sources for municipal, educational, and utility operations as we move forward in developing this spending plan. Very few changes have occurred since those initial revenues were identified in October and November. We have highlighted them on the screen. The vast majority of the changes fall within 2 categories. One, utility revenue, and that's quite customary as we utilize utility reserves to really build capital improvement plans. Those vary most significantly. We start with mainly looking at recurring revenues that will come in through the rates for the utility accounts in October. But then as we really identify longer-term needs that will begin to be addressed or continue to be addressed in the ensuing fiscal year, we increase those revenues that we have in reserve for those purposes. There is a minor change, relatively speaking, in state aid, which is positive, almost $500,000. That is associated with the governor's initiative through the Fair Share Act or the millionaire's tax, depending on how you want to look at it, where this administration has identified basically a 50% increase in Chapter 70 funding to enhance transportation capabilities within every community within the Commonwealth. For Shrewsbury, that means we'll get almost $500,000 additional in Chapter 90 like aid to repair roadways. Local receipts, we've had extraordinary levels of local receipts due to strong economic conditions within the community over the past few years. We're really thankful and grateful to be able to introduce another $1 million of local receipts based upon not only FY23's performance, but FY24's performance through the end of January. That puts us in a really good spot. It's one of the reasons, or the primary reason, that we're actually able to contribute to the Override Stabilization Fund again this year, and be in a better position long-term with those commitments to the 2021 override. Very limited utilization of free cash. There's no free cash being proposed in the operating budget itself. So free cash is a one-time revenue source that is not being used for any recurring expenditures. So $2.6 million new in revenue. So the new part this evening that we're going to dive into are how we propose to spend those dollars. The summary that you see on the screen includes an educational set aside that was detailed out by Dr. Sawyer. This number and all numbers are subject to change as we go throughout the budget process, receive finance committee feedback, receive select board feedback, receive feedback from the public, and of course, the numbers will change. The state budget hasn't been passed on time in the last few years, so that's something that we'll always more than likely need to go back and clean up at a special town meeting in the fall. So these numbers will be dynamic for some months into the future. So bottom line basis, we have a balanced budget, which I'm obligated to submit at least 90 days in advance of town meeting, and that's what we're talking about this evening. The breakdown and the allocation of the total expenditures are very similar to what they have been in the past. The largest single source being the education budget, general municipal operations, and then the utilities. So we always look at the budget expenditures at the highest level by functional areas, and that's what we're illustrating here on the screen. And so we're going to start to take a look at what we propose to what we're recommending through fiscal projection 1, what departments requested, what they thought they needed to do to drive towards those ideals and the outcome areas within the strategic plan, what was budgeted in fiscal year 24, and how those changes will play out between fiscal year 24 and 25 as proposed. So in total, $6 million, just a little over $6 million in additional spending is proposed for fiscal year 25 over what we had in fiscal year 24. And we'll talk about that. So what are the highlights kind of verbally within the budget? So we have met the board's obligation in providing a budget to you on the municipal side that's 4%, no greater than 4% more than the current budget. So it is exactly a 4% increase. We felt that we needed more than that, but we understand our obligations in managing the budget to our means and developing a budget that's 4% year over year for you. That meant we had to make some hard choices, which I'll talk about. So that provides a little over $1.3 million in new expenditures for municipal operations. So when we looked at expenditures in total, there's $1.8 million introduced across the 27 different departments. 9 departments actually are recommended at decreases year over year. We are providing a level services budget. Again, hard decisions had to be made throughout the course of the budget. I appreciate not only the willingness to work with us across all departments, but the extra work that some departments had to do to actually bring their budget into the alignment and the bottom lines that we actually had to get to be within that 4% cap. So where do the challenges really come into place? Just like most municipal operations, we're a human capital intense operation. Most of our expenses go to salary and wages. And of the net increase of 1.3 million, $1.2 million is going to salaries and wages, most of which is contractual through collective bargaining agreements that we have in place. Police and fire wages were highly prioritized in this budget. Those wage increases alone are almost $985,000 increase year over year. Net operating expenses, so everything except salaries and wages, had a net increase of only $77,000 over the FY24 spending level. Now, there's a lot of trade-offs. Again, some departments are lower than current year where we had the opportunity to do that, all with the target of being within that 4% limitation. So this is where the hard part comes. So in total, we had to cut $2,378,000 from department requests. So those are true requests that departments believe that they need to not only continue level services, but really move towards the strategic outcome areas and meet their own expectations, that they have a great understanding of what the constituents that they serve really would benefit from. So we've cut more money out of the department requests than we're actually proposing to you this evening, and I'll talk a little bit about that. So with the expenditure increases, we're proposing 2.5 additional full-time equivalent employees. And it's really simple when it's that small of a number. We're proposing 2 additional patrol officers within the police department and increasing the assistant town clerk's role from a half-time position to a full-time position. So that's the sole recommendation that we're making for staffing changes across the board. So where did those unfunded requests lie? I want to provide one caveat. It's within the first line. It's within the personnel board. One of the changes in approach that we've taken this year that I'll talk about now is that to try to be more transparent and show true cost of operations, we've allocated the town manager's recommended cost of living adjustment for fiscal year 25, which is just mine at this point. It needs to come through the personnel board to be official, but we've actually, which is 2%, we've allocated that within the salary and wage line items within the FY25 column for the budget. So normally in prior years, that was all held within the personnel board account, and it got a little less than, it was less transparent than we could be. So we've actually allocated that and tried to provide a more true cost of operations right up front for all departments. So then you'll see a variety of changes that we've made throughout the budget process. On the left side of the screen are operational non-salary and wage adjustments, primarily speaking. And then on the right side, many of those unfunded areas were impacting general fund salary and wage expenditures. And we'll get into more of the details whenever we go through the various budgets. But again, it was just a challenging year to have to cut out over roughly $2.4 million from requests that I know that were well thought out by departments and truly needed by the community. But to be at the funding level that we were asked to be at, this is where we ended up. So this is just another high-level look of the administration and finance. And I'll talk a little bit about the various departments within this functional category. So in total, there's a net decrease of expenditures within administration and finance, and these departments provide critical critical back-end support to all of our mission-oriented aspects of our organization. So these are the departments behind the scenes managing the funds, managing the human capital needs, posting positions, providing support and advice and assistance to ensure that our mission-oriented departments can perform the great work that they do for our residents. Whenever I've talked about the changes within the personnel board. I'm using the icons associated with the strategic plan, that's the exceptional icon near the personnel board. We're trying to be more transparent with that and roll the actual cost of living adjustments out throughout the budget. So that's where those costs lie this year. Within the town manager's office, the change in funding, not solely attributed to, but partially attributed to, rolling in of additional funding within the general fund for the communications coordinator position. So this is an initiative set forth by the select board where we used ARPA funds to help seed funding in for the position. So we'll continue to roll that into the general fund budget for fiscal year 25 and allow us to wean ourselves off of the ARPA funds, which go away at the end of the calendar year. I wanted to take the opportunity to acknowledge the hard work that's done by the assessors department. Through their initiatives for the strategic plan, they've done a significant amount of work to identify and properly audit personal property of commercial businesses within the community, which over the last 2 years has yielded over about $1 million in additional revenue. So as we think about the strategic plan, the override and our ability to preserve it for more than 4 years, it takes the work of departments like the assessors to be on top of their game and actually identifying new revenue for us to be able to utilize over what we ever would have thought that we had. The town clerk's office, as I previously mentioned, is one area that we've identified that we need an increase of staffing. This has a lot to do with the increased human capital expenditures associated with elections and registration and automatic voter registration that occurs really anytime that you interact with any aspect of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts in a formal way. So that will bring the department up to 4 full-time total staff, which I think is well within average for a community of ours like ours. And of course, this is a federal election year.
I don't know if you want questions now or if you want to
Yeah,
wait.
please, go ahead.
Okay, because this is the second time it's come up.
Yep.
The town clerk, wasn't the assistant town clerk a full-time position several years ago?
It was.
So we're basically just realizing that we can't do it without it being full-time.
That's correct, yep. So the real difference in the full 3-year range is we used to have a part-time administrative assistant. So that transition to a part-time clerk and a full-time assistant under current operations. But as we move forward into the fiscal year, all positions will be full-time within the department. So it is a minor change. It has bounced back and forth. But we need to stick with the higher staffing level now.
So, and if I had a question on slide 12, do you want me to ask it now or wait until
Yeah,
you're finished?
please.
So when I look through the recreation budget, and I mean, we just had this presentation on recreation, could you explain a little bit, because that's, to me, that's the largest budget,
Yeah.
reduction of $736,879.
So it was a little bit of an exercise that we went through with recreation this year. When Ms. Rossiter prepared her budget, we asked her to provide everything, all expenditures, regardless of the revenue source within her general fund appropriation. So we rely heavily upon revolving fund dollars, monies that we raise for programs and application fees and things like that to fund the recreation program. We want to continue year after year to bring more of the continued ongoing costs, especially those associated with full-time staff, into the general fund. So when we see the recreation budget within the operating budget that we talk about each year and goes to town meeting, we're really only looking at a quarter, $250,000 of a $1 million operation that they run for recreation programs. So I say it was an exercise because it allowed us to look at all expenditures and understand the revenues better and the operations better. It gives us a clearer line of sight what we need to do in the future, where our vulnerabilities may lie, and we'll actually be proposing funding to bring in a financial consultant in the upcoming year to really help us tease this out and figure out the right balance between general fund and revolving accounts.
Right, because then when COVID happened, right, we found ourselves with a
Right.
situation where we had an employee that was basically, their salary was paid through the fees collected for programs, and those programs ceased to exist, and then what happens to that?
Right.
staff member.
Yeah, and even since that time, we've moved far beyond that, right? Not only have we increased the total number of FTEs full-time within the department by one full employee, but we also only have less than 50% of one of those positions, if you look at it on a position-by-position basis, that isn't funded fully by the general fund.
Thank you.
Sure.
Does anybody else have any questions? Okay, carry on.
Thanks. So, elections and registration is going up this year. It is a federal election cycle. We do have more elections throughout the course of the year, and it being a presidential election. So that is a cost that bounces back and forth for elections and registrations every other year, and this is a higher year. All right, so operating support is a budget area that really funds a lot of behind-the-scenes costs associated with a number of things throughout town and school operations. So every item that's identified on the screen with an asterisk benefits both town and school operations. So we call that shared operating support. That includes our employee assistance program, group health and life insurance program, which is our largest single expenditure line item within municipal operations. It is a challenging year for that, an overall increase of about 8%. That number continues to get bigger and bigger every year. $16.4 million is needed. This is the town's match as an employer, and then employees also contribute to their premiums depending on which plans they take. So roughly that number is about 2/3 educational supportive and the other third municipal. So about $10 million to $6 million, roughly speaking. Medicare employer match, employer contribution to federal taxes, unemployment compensation, and general insurance, which includes our liability, our automobile, our professional liability, and our property insurance, are all mutually beneficial to town and school operations. Oil and fuel, you'll see the sustainable icon for the strategic plan. This is the first year that we're actually budgeting for electric metering rates for our electric vehicles. So we do have a growing fleet of electric vehicles. Some of them are plug-in hybrids, some of them are full EVs. And so not only does that include diesel and gasoline now, but it also has funding in there for our electric charging needs. So in total, an increase of about $1.1 million for operating support. This is an area that trends separate and apart from the shared line items, trend separate and apart from municipal operations and educational operations. This spending cap wasn't held, although it does not impact the overall trajectory of the override and the override commitment. We were not able to hold it to the 6.6 maximum expenditure. I don't have the specific number, but I think it was a little over 8% that it ended up coming in for those shared operating line items. Public safety, one of the biggest areas that increases in most years. These functions associate most directly with the strategic outcome area of striving. We are proposing to increase 2 additional patrol officers. The chief will do his best to begin to build a traffic services division within the department. He did request 5 total patrol officers. We are funding 2 of those. He truly needed the 5 to be able to establish a comprehensive standalone traffic unit, but he is committed to putting those resources there. It's a growing need. I know it's one of the most frequent areas of concern that the select board hears from residents and how we manage traffic and speeding and things like that in neighborhood streets. So we are funding that commitment along with other public safety needs for both the police and fire departments through this budget category. So the retirement system, funding associated with municipal employee retirement system, we're kind of fluctuating back and forth. One of the top 3 funded pension systems in the Commonwealth. We were the first or most recent to achieve full funding in recent years. As we've talked about, what we're doing now in this more steady state of funding is we'll be balancing the amount of money depending on market conditions that is attributed to the town's contribution, what's called the normal cost to our pension system, and what we place into our other post-employment benefits trust fund. So the vast majority of the pension system is funded by employees through payroll deductions of their salary and wages. Most municipal employees contribute 11% of their salary and wages into the pension system, and it's not an employer burdened cost, but there is a contribution that the town makes called the normal cost on an annual basis. And as market conditions fluctuate and we stay within the policies of the retirement board, we need additional funding, $501,000 more in funding for the retirement contribution than we did in prior years. The other post-employment benefits, which are health insurance benefits for retirees, is something that we're keeping our eye on. We have a trust fund established with that to make sure we can meet the obligations and commitments that we're making to current employees when they become retirees, but it's not a legislatively mandated cost that we're required to get to full funding by any certain date or time. So we have flexibility within these 2 line items. On a bottom line basis, we're funding the same amount year over year, but the split between these 2 line items is changing. So Public Works functional area and the Department of Public Works in total is obviously one of the largest expenditure areas within the municipal operations budget. These funds in some ways support utility operations from an administration and leadership and oversight standpoint and support, but those rate funded activities like water and sewer and stormwater and part of solid waste collections, we'll talk about in a little bit, they're not included in this $10 million. So Public Works Administration, I just wanted to take the time to acknowledge there's a significant amount of work that's going on within Public Works Administration, the Business Management Division, to help us fast forward and overcome some challenges that we're having in our water billing. It's an increasingly complex and growing challenge that we've had in making sure we're replacing those 14,000 water meters that we have on time to make sure we're accurately billing all residents. As technology changes, the technology in water meters change, how we read them, and how we can best service residents through them is evolving, and we're going through that process. So it's been a challenge to provide accurate bills while we're trying to manage that current system. We're also trying to improve it for the future. So I just want to acknowledge the exceptional work that's going on within that division. I know it's something that they're meeting with multiple times a week and really trying to, again, manage the current system and build the future system so we can be modern and efficient and accurate in our billing. Not a lot of other changes within the DPW. I'll talk about the largest single change, which is within public buildings. A lot of that continues to be increasing utility costs. So public buildings, in their budget, roughly 70% of it is really directly attributable to our school buildings. We have, I think, the preferred model where the town side manages all the public buildings, including the educational facilities that we have. It brings many economies of scale, clearly saves taxpayer money on an annual basis. But when we have over 1.2 million square feet of buildings, utility cost increases have a significant impact. The challenge for us on the town side is roughly 10% of all of our new revenues that were allocated under that 4% cap are actually going into servicing the school building. So it creates a little bit more of a burden. Again, we're doing the right model, but I thought it was important to highlight how some of our dollars get allocated to solely educational benefits. The other, I guess, most significant change is this is a contract year for our contracted custodial cleaners. We rely on not only in-house staff, but contracted staff to manage that 1.2 million square feet of building. And because fiscal year 25 is the start of a new 3-year cycle, as we normally do, and on that reset, we're seeing higher costs for those services. I also wanted to touch on parks maintenance. Parks maintenance, and Kevin Esposito has probably had one of the largest burdens of all the extra funding that we've had from American Rescue Plan Act and becoming a Community Preservation Act community. A lot of that work on a day-to-day basis was fallen to Kevin and his staff. They've done a really good job of balancing what the community needs, what will make us a thriving community, and also environmental sustainability and all the efforts that they're taking. So he will continue to provide that work. That is one of the reasons that, although it's not the largest dollar value, it is one of the larger increases within the DPW budget this year, is because we continue to place emphasis in our open and natural spaces throughout the community, and that gets handled through our Parks Maintenance Division within DPW. Community development departments are really those departments that fall within the strategic outcome area of Prosperous, and really partnering with residents and businesses and developing a great planned state and environment for development to occur and residents to enjoy a high quality of life through. We continue to make investments in planning and economic development. I think we still continue to lag behind in this area for a community of our size. It's a really new department for Shrewsbury, only a couple years old, despite the level and intensity of development and investment that we've seen on both the commercial and residential sectors within our community. So we continue to provide greater than average funding to support planning and economic development initiatives. Of course, you can't open any newspaper in the Commonwealth without seeing MBTA communities and zoning, and that's all being handled through planning and economic development. A lot of work going in through Mr. McGoldrick and his staff, so we'll continue to provide that support that they need so we can continue to meet a whole variety of developer, development, and resident needs from the planning activities that occur within that department. And within the human services functional area, really across the board reductions. These are opportunistic adjustments. I can assure you that we will continue to look to enhance services, provide the same services year over year. You'll see that the numbers that we're using here in comparing recreation is more of that year over year rather than the exercise and what we talked about, the actual department requests we're coming in from. So actually, I think we might have a wrong slide up here. Maybe the headers are just wrong on it.
Those human services?
Yeah. Anyway.
Community development, human services, and
All right. So debt and interest. So we're starting to reach the peak of our debt service obligations. As we brought more projects on, as we made investments in the community, education-wise, public safety-wise, that debt, because we use a declining debt service model, has really reached its cap or its maximum expenditure. And in future years, without any additional debt, we'll start to see a little taxpayer relief through this aspect of our budget. So it's a minor reduction from the exempted service level year over year. So that's the additional money that we can raise for debt service purposes. It's a small net increase year over year, but most of that is attributable, or all of it is actually attributable to water rate capital improvement model that we implemented through the annual town meeting last year, while the general tax levy will see a reduction year over year. So all of our debt, of course, like all debt, has principal and interest. The benefit of our declining debt service model is our interest rapidly declines year over year. And you can see that play out on this slide through the debt service that we still have obligations for. So all except for the debt that we brought on in the current fiscal year, calendar year 23, is declining year over year. So finally, talk just a little bit about all of the rate supported aspects of the budget, our utilities, solid waste, stormwater, and water. Those utilities in total are projecting the requirement or being recommended at about $2.5 million greater than the prior year. And I'll talk about those just briefly. So our solid waste utility is both tax levy funded and user fee supported. So the pay-as-you-throw bag cost is only attributed to is only expended on solid waste operations. A slight increase year over year associated with the contract change and other initiatives that we're taking on for the solid waste program, which in my opinion continues to improve year over year, and we're benefiting from that investment that the board made in the solid waste coordinator and allowing the separate dedicated management of those operations. It is a $3.25 million operation coming up this fiscal year. Stormwater, we are moving into the 6th year of operation of our stormwater utility, and our rate model is nearing the end of that 5-year commitment that we made when we established the utility, and it has served us well. We are moving into year 6 through 10 of our stormwater permit with the federal government, and that's where we're actually going to begin to have to expend more dollars on capital improvements to manage stormwater quality within our community rather than doing monitoring and investigations that we did in the first 5 years. So you see that reflected in this budget. Excuse me. It's a sizable increase year over year. We budgeted a little shy of $2 million in fiscal year 24, and we're proposing just shy of $4.3 million because of those capital expenditures that we have to take on to manage stormwater quality starting in fiscal year 25. Within wastewater operations or sewer, a modest increase year over year. We aren't proposing any additional staff. Luckily, utility cost expenses have not had as large of impact on sewer operations as we have. We, of course, enjoy the benefit of regional partnerships with the Upper Blackstonian, Westboro treatment plants, and this balanced budget will continue to provide service levels and make meaningful capital investments to manage our sewer system in fiscal year 25. And the same with water. Really a year over year decrease. Throughout the course of the fiscal year, we'll likely have to access additional funds. We didn't borrow all $12 million that we were authorized for, so as we build our capital improvement schedule for the ensuing year, these numbers may change when we get to the October town meeting, but we'll be back to the board to talk about water rates and if there's any impact associated with this spending plan for the upcoming year. So in total, we propose a balanced budget that meets the 4% overall expenditure limitation for municipal operations. We do have that one deviation from the commitment for shared operating support because of cost increases higher than expected for health insurance. And we look forward to this just being the start of the budget review process, answering any additional questions that you may have, and working with the Finance Committee to get us to town meeting with a balanced spending plan.
Thank you. That was an excellent presentation and very detailed, and I know how much work went into it by all of your staff that had a hand in preparing the budget. Thank you, all of you, for making it so easy to digest. I think the presentation was very clear. I hope residents who watch it, that they're able to follow along with it. If someone would like to take a look at the budget themselves, the presentation, where would they go to find it?
So it will be sent out to everyone that's signed up for updates from the board tomorrow morning. And if there's a specific webpage set up, Taylor?
I sent it out last week,
Okay.
but I'll send it out again tomorrow.
Okay, so there is a dedicated page off the town manager's page for the FY25 budget. All the information in greater detail and line item detail, which is even more detailed than we actually take to town meeting, is available for all residents to see now. There's interactive tools. That residents can see how their individual tax bill may be spent for this spending plan. So we encourage you to go to our financial transparency page off of the town manager's webpage and access all this information this way. And we'll be at the finance committee on Thursday to do this again if someone wants to hear it again.
Catch the rerun. You learn something new every time you hear it, though, I think. Questions or comments from board members?
Maybe a couple comments.
Go ahead.
I think that it always, when we break it down and we see that only about 19% of the total budget is, allocated to municipal, about $34 million. And that includes all of, town hall, public safety, DPW, as you outlined. I think as we go through budget processes, we always hear a lot about needs-based, and I think that you outlining that, there was over $2 million in requests that I'm sure most of them could be presented as needs-based. You mentioned the override and how we've now extended it to 6 years, which sometimes residents feel like they watch these meetings and they think we pat ourselves on the back, but I think it is important to note that on one hand, a lot of your fiscal updates have been positive. And we have banked that in the stabilization fund so that we don't have to ask residents for an increase earlier than we need to. And so I think it is important to highlight that. And as you said, give people the opportunity to go through this budget in detail if they disagree with anything, to bring it to our attention during these public hearings, so that we don't hear about it on the back end, so that they understand what is driving the increases. Because as you outlined, there will be an override ask in the future. At some point, you illustrated it. Otherwise, we create that cliff that this whole stabilization fund process was designed to avoid and eliminate. And I think that with Taylor being in the room, we've talked a lot about updating town meeting members. And I know you've done some work on the town meeting webpage, or someone has. But I requested that following these meetings, we send an email to town meeting members. Here was the meeting, here's the deck, here's the point in the meeting that you can listen, because I think it's really important that they be, fully engaged, fully informed, before we get into these public hearings, just so that ultimately they're the ones that are deciding on the budget. So we want to hear from them before we get to annual town meeting. So thank you for all the hard work.
I would love to just underscore that point that you made about the model that we use with the override, right? Because I think if the board wouldn't have recommended or implemented the commitment that we made, many communities would have fallen into the trap of spending all the new revenue that we receive. But that is, as you said, that's not what we've done. We've saved that revenue, creating that 5% cushion that we have to not need to go to voters at the end of the fourth year. It's the sixth year now. And I think many communities would have fallen into the trap of just spending it because it was there. We didn't spend it.
Yep. And I think, may I?
Of course.
Not sure. I think even when you talk about, the capital improvements that are needed, in stormwater, for example, there are examples with water, sewer, stormwater. We utilized ARPA funds. The budget shows that the rates that taxpayers are paying for this upcoming fiscal year are generally being held flat. So I think that it's important. I say I speak for myself, but I know I speak for all of my colleagues, and I speak for town staff. Like, we want to make sure that we are mitigating the impact on taxpayers. We have heard them that, with inflation, we know with home assessed values, and we hear the pain, but I don't want to preach on it, but it is important to note that we could have done the 4-year commitment like we did, spent that excess funding that we got, and asked for an override a lot sooner. But we're working very hard to make sure that we can avoid that for as long as possible.
Mr. Samia?
Thank you. One thing you said, Mr. Mizikar, about planning was followed the playbook, is what you said early on. And the one thing that you alluded to was the fourth or fifth slide is the financial model. That's the other important piece of this, that regularly throughout the year, you're looking at the numbers, you're changing the projections, you're making sure that we can meet our commitments, and that's been the linchpin of why we've been able to extend this out, because of the constant planning. And the other piece with this is the strategic planning. That's what we constantly hear is planning. Mm-hmm. And that is what's throughout this budget, and it's in terms of what we're looking to achieve and highlighting and throughout the budget and how it all ties together. But that's been the fundamental shift in our town government over the last handful of years, or more so while you've been here, that we've gone from the year at a time to the longer term vision. And that has allowed us to pivot during COVID, which we had no idea that was coming, but you had already started the financial model. So the important piece about all of this is that there's more than just even this 1 year, that you're looking at the impact of every decision made this year and how will that ripple through, how will that compound, and what will the impact of that be, which I'm sure led to a lot of the challenges and decisions to not fund that additional $2.4 million, because they're largely recurring expenses, and what the impact would be, obviously our commitments, but what rolling those numbers through would do. So the comment I have is the value that planning has played in stabilizing and sustaining what we've been able to do for a period of time and plus, and that's not by accident. So question in terms of strategy, have you seen through this budget process, now that we've had the strategic plan in place for a while, and not years, but more the mindset, stakeholders who are involved, do you see with our department heads that they are starting to think more long-term, that a lot of these asks were directly tied to the strategic plan, not one-off, but with the impact of years to meet residents' expectations? Are you finding that to be natural and organic, and it's getting there? Is that adopted by all, or what are you seeing in the process this year?
I think it's still a work in progress. I think we've made a ton of progress. The phrase that I've used is moving from compliance to commitment, right? Like, we're somewhere in that spectrum. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's fully ingrained into every aspect of our culture and how we think, but it's getting there. And the more we utilize it, the more we talk about it, it makes sense, but it's still a work in progress. We still have some improvements to make, but I'm very pleased. We're roughly 12, 13 months beyond the adoption of the original plan by the board. Right. We're still 8 months into the first true fiscal cycle with the strategic plan. We are still building KPIs, key performance indicators, to be able to get you that data, but so those things we're still working on, but how it gets integrated into what we think about and what we do grows every day.
And the important part of it, they were involved as active stakeholders in the planning process. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't, here's your plan, congratulations, now figure it out. But it was active engagement to make sure that where we came out was meaningful, particularly to those who had to execute on it. Mm-hmm. So that was important. With respect to the $2.4 million that wasn't funded, in terms of what impact, if any, will that have on our ability to move forward with our strategic plan? Does it just slow it down? Does it hold it in its tracks in particular areas? What are your thoughts with that?
It slows it down quite a bit. I mean, there's no doubt that that's probably the accelerating aspect. Like, if we could use some of that, we would be able to accelerate and move quicker towards that 2030 vision that we've set. Mm-hmm. There's things in there that we haven't even proposed yet. Town meeting was, gave us the funding to do a unified dispatch study and to look at an EMS study. We've completed the dispatch study. We can't afford to implement the dispatch study yet. We haven't even brought it to the board for a full briefing because it's just out of reach at this point with the model that we have set up. there are many things out there that could clearly accelerate and I think would provide true and more meaningful services, but it's that balance that we're meeting with this plan.
Okay, thank you. One last? More of a comment. One area, looking at the numbers, and one area I think that will provide great benefit relative to expense, even if it's using shorter-term ARPA dollars, is economic development. Our planning department, as you said, it's a younger group. They're taxed. They're working really hard, dealing with the new opportunities in town, with zoning, with the planning aspects of it. But I'd like to see us on a development or the possibility of being able to reach, once these businesses are here, what's our engagement with them? What's our engagement with other properties in town that could go to the next level in terms of potential, or existing businesses in town? Could we possibly utilize dollars to help in that aspect too, to alleviate, like you said? I mean, we're maybe not where we'd like to be ideally, but is that an opportunity as well, or something we could look at? And looking at ARPA dollars, understanding the run rules and when we have to spend them, is that something we could look at, either a consultant or some dollars to help defray off? Generally, we don't go recurring, but to look at that as well, I think that could alleviate some of the stress on the planning aspect of it, given MBTA zoning and all of the things that are gonna come to us, but also on those businesses that we have in town and other properties that we can all think of that really have upside potential, but we can't get to that. We can't get to potential businesses in other areas that maybe could help us revitalize different parts and parcels that are in town that are there, and we'd love to see them go to the next level. So that's just one thing looking at this that if we could explore, in utilizing some model like we did with a communication coordinator position or the firefighters, and talk through that as the process goes. So that's just my comment.
I'll just say, yes, I think every time we've made a new commitment with new resources, whether it's within recreation, within communications, within solid waste and cemetery operations, every time we made those investments, it's yielded more back to us than it's cost us, and economic development continues to be an area that we're not investing fully in.
It's just something for us to look at as we go through it. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions?
I just had sort of a quick comment. You mentioned where residents who are signed up for updates will receive this tomorrow. Where can we remind them where they can sign up if they're not signed up for updates and they would like them?
Sure. You can go straight to shrewsburyma.gov, and when you land there, if you haven't X'd out or said, don't ask me to sign up again, provide that option right on the landing page of the webpage. You can email manager@shrewsburyma.gov, and we'll get you signed up or send you a link. It's accessible for the Notify Me off of our webpage.
Thank you.
And on the back of the newsletter, if they scan the QR code, it'll take them to a registration form.
Thank you.
And there.
You good? Okay, I just had just a couple of comments, I think. So I think we've had a lot of discussion around extending the duration of the override. I think it's just important to look back a little bit at the history that we've had as a community with overrides. So there have been 2 successful overrides, one in 2014 and one in 2021. And before that, there were 7 unsuccessful overrides. So there's never a sense from any of us at this table, right, that when we ask, we will receive, right? So we understand that we need to earn that trust from the community, that we are taking care to stretch every dollar as far as we can. And I think that the budget presentation that we just heard is indicative of the work that's being done to stretch those dollars. But it comes with an impact, right? So when we talk about the fact that the budget may be balanced, right, which it is and it has to be, we have to make sure that we're still recognizing that there's a lot in this budget that would have impacted resident experiences that can't be done because we're making a choice to extend the duration of the override. We're not in a position anymore, we hope, where we ask for an override to avoid catastrophe. We're trying to change the mindset of the public so that they're understanding that we're asking for an override because we need additional funding to maintain services that people have come to expect and value in our community. We're trying to maintain those service levels. But what we aren't doing right now is investing. I hear what you're saying. I feel like since I joined the board, we've been talking about needing an economic development person solely focused on economic development. And it still hasn't happened. It's concerning to me that we're unable to make strategic investments in municipal operations, especially the police budget. I have numerous conversations with people over and over again about traffic, speed. And it is very uncomfortable to have to say, I understand, we can get you an electronic speed sign, but there really isn't a way to do effective traffic monitoring and speed control on our neighborhood streets because we just don't have the resources for it. That answer isn't good enough for our residents. So every time, we look at a budget, we are making trade-offs, and it's frustrating to not be able to make the investments that we need to make. So I just want to make sure that the public understands that we are prioritizing the need to give them a break in tax increases. We recognize how much tax bills have increased over the last 4 years, but we can't do it all. And so I do appreciate all of the work that went into finding ways to reduce the budget, and hopefully those are ways that residents aren't going to directly feel it. But you never know what you don't have, right? So the ways that things could have been more improved, the kinds of recreation programs that we might have been able to have, the safer streets, whatever else is in the budget that we haven't even talked about. I mean, when I looked through that slide, there were 8 departments that were requesting additional staff, and only 2 got additional staff. And at that, it was only 2.5 staff. That is not a huge increase for an operation this size for a community of 40,000. That's all.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. That brings us to item number 10, just under new business, and that is to review and act to set the date, time, and location for the annual town meeting on Monday, May 20th, 2024, at 7 p.m. at Oak Middle School, 45 Oak Street. So just because I know the next question from people is always, well, what if we run an additional evening? And I see no way that we wouldn't go more than one evening, considering that we have several items on the town meeting warrant, anticipated that are going to be meaty items. Oak Middle School is reserved for the 21st and the 22nd. Any questions? Not, we'll take a motion.
Well, with that, we'll move to set the date, time, and location for annual town meeting for Monday, May 20th, 2024 at 7 p.m. at Oak Middle School.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, so the next few items here are the donation bin permits, and I want to just take a minute to thank you, Justin, because I know that you've been tracking these down for us. So what we're doing here is there's those donation bins that are out throughout town on private property. We really don't have an opportunity to prohibit these bins, but going back to when Selectman DiPaolo was on this board, he worked on a bylaw so that the bins would have to be permitted. And so what that does is it gives us an opportunity to know where these bins are in town, and when they're overflowing or when they aren't being properly, emptied on time, or unfortunately in a lot of cases, it's just there's dumping that happens, and it happens in advance of the day when the bin would normally be emptied. We know who we can contact in order to get that taken care of, so it's not an eyesore for the community. So we have several here. I think they were all existing, right? And
Correct.
They're already there on the property, and then we made sure that they followed the correct process to have them permitted. So item 11 is to review and act on the donation bin permit application from Bin Incentives Group, Inc. for one donation bin located at 22 Maple Ave pursuant to Article 25 of the general bylaws. And so for people who are watching at home, that is the Gulf/Mobile Station.
Move approval.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So item 12 is to review and act on the donation bin permit application from Bin Incentives Group, Inc. for one donation bin located at 152 Main Street pursuant to Article 25 of the general bylaws, and that's at the Indie Society of Worcester.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Item 13, review and act on the donation bin permit from Noria Energy Retail, Inc. for one donation bin located at 271 Boston Turnpike pursuant to Article 25 of the general bylaws. That's the Route 9 Shell Station.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Item number 14 is to review and act on the donation bin permit application from Noria Energy Retail, Inc. for one donation bin located at 29 Maple Avenue pursuant to Article 25 of the general bylaws, and that's our Shell Station on Maple Avenue.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. And I know we have a couple more still coming.
Correct.
Yes, thank you. Review and act, item 15, review and act on the appointment of Sharon Thomas as town clerk for a 3-year term set to expire on March 1st, 2027 pursuant to Article 4M of the general bylaws.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Item number 16 is to review and act on the appointment of Amy Perkins as treasurer and collector for a 3-year term set to expire on March 1st, 2027 pursuant to Article 4F of the general bylaws.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, the next item is to review and act on the request to form a sustainability committee. So just to give a little bit of background for people who are watching at home, because I do know that our board is aware of how we've gotten to this point. So we've been engaging with a citizens sustainability group called Tipping Point for probably the past 3 years. And we received some communication from them, which we acknowledged on our last meeting agenda under correspondence, asking for our board to establish a sustainability committee. They were trying to decide whether to bring it forward as a citizen's petition to town meeting, but came to us first because we do have a collaborative relationship, having worked in the past on the Climate Action and Resiliency Plan. So we met with Tipping Point, I believe it was Select Board Member Samia and myself at office hours about a month ago. We reviewed 2 proposed drafts that they have sent to us over time, and also took into consideration basically what we heard them saying at office hours. And then thanks to the work of Taylor and Assistant Town Manager Baldinger, and I believe it was Louise from the Planning Department, we also had a pretty good list of other community sustainability committees to look at their charges and their duties and to sort of see what we think might work well for Shrewsbury. And a proposed draft charge was brought before us in a workshop setting, and we just wanted to kind of have that conversation here in a meeting and talk through what we're thinking around a sustainability committee. We have the option this evening to vote on whether or not we would like to form one. We could, decide to wait. It just depends on what the board decides to do. So in the drive, you have the draft that was in our workshop materials, but also a red line version that has some edits. So we want to just take a look at those and have a conversation around, what the thoughts are of board members.
Madam Chair, I forget, the edits have not been shared with,
Mr. Samia made some edits to the draft, sent them to Mr. Dobson,
okay,
and he placed them in our drive for us.
now I understand.
And they are, mostly from what I can understand, I think you added the word Shrewsbury in front of all the sustainability committees, which is probably smart.
Yeah, I mean, they're largely cleanup.
Yes.
Some of them are procedural adds. One's just clarity about who's eligible to be a member. But, just a couple word choices, but largely the same draft. It just went through it and made a few suggested changes.
One of my questions was, who from town staff is, we usually, with boards, committees, we have a town staff member that is kind of responsible for working with them, overseeing, et cetera, and I was unclear on if that was the intent here and who that would be.
So I know most of the boards and committees do have a staff member, but some of them don't. Like, for example, the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging Committee doesn't have a staff member, and I don't think does the Trails Committee have a staff member? No.
Kevin has
Yeah,
his either.
okay.
Well, you go to every DEI
I'm
meeting,
not a
but,
staff member at that.
I'm sorry, I should say, okay, so select board
I guess, yeah, I do go.
representation, someone other than just the direct.
So I don't know
members.
exactly, that's a good question. And I'm not really sure of the answer. What are your thoughts? I don't want to put you on the spot, but I think I will, because you're here.
So I don't know if it would actually be a meeting attendee, but staff liaison would probably be Louise O'Neill from our planning department, who would be leading our green team, internal green team. Don't believe it'll be in the capacity as in meeting minutes and such like that, but it would be the connection.
And to be clear, I'm not suggesting that there be, I'm actually kind of concerned about additional workload on town staff that's, already pretty stretched. So I just wanted to kind of have an idea as to whether or not we thought this would be an additional lift, possibly an evening meeting for someone who already has.
Right, I mean, we'll definitely have that connection and collaboration and communication between that. I don't know if the committee would actually require somebody to attend.
Maybe occasionally at request, but all right, thank you. I to be honest with you, I saw the first draft, but I haven't gone through it in detail as of yet. If there's the ability to have additional comments and action at our next meeting, I don't have any immediate comments at this time other than that only question.
Any other comments?
I don't have it in front of me right now, so I apologize for my lack of comments. This does, tie to our strategic plan, our sustainable goal. And we have earlier this year created the Climate Action and Resiliency Plan in partnership with some of the folks that are looking for us to create this committee. So, I would actually appreciate if we could add it to our next agenda, an opportunity to kind of dive a little bit deeper into it. But, it ties to our strategic plan, and I think it's worth moving forward.
Any other comments?
Yeah,
Yeah, I think I'm also comfortable with pushing it on to the next meeting. I will say overall that I am supportive of us creating a sustainability committee. I think, as was mentioned, it ties very well with our sustainability goals. We created the Climate Action Resiliency Plan, or we finalized that a few months ago. And so I think that will help us not only sort of hold ourselves accountable to that plan in a public way, but also will allow the public and the community to get more information about how they themselves can be sustainable, since I think it was noted at that presentation that, a lot of the CARP is only focused on municipal operations, and really a lot of the, I guess, climate concerns come from residents. So, what can we do to help kind of bridge that gap? I think that sustainability committee could help with that. And so, yeah, those are just my initial reactions to that.
Okay. All right, can we put it on the agenda for next time? Thank you. All right, that brings us to correspondence. So item number 18 is an email dated February 9th, 2024 from Laura Cronin, 160 Crescent Street, regarding swimming and special needs kids. And I do want to note that the issue was addressed by the Parks and Recreation Department, and Mrs. Cronin notes that they were wonderful listeners. So we're still here, so I do want to thank you for taking that residents' concern and making them feel heard. Item number 19 is an email dated February 13th, 2024 from Thomas Grisso for Candlewood Way regarding the comment on 142 Clinton Street proposal. So Mr. Grisso wrote to the board about the project at 142 Clinton Street. He had very detailed questions, and I do want to thank town staff under the direction of Mr. Baldinger for helping me craft a response that was worthy of his questions. And we went back and forth a little bit around the project, and I think we came to a pretty good understanding at the end that the town really does care deeply about all of its neighborhoods, but understands that, you know, development is part of what people are able to do on a piece of land that's privately owned and then sold for that purpose. And as long as it's done, you know, within zoning and with the oversight of the planning board, that is where the process really is taking place. And I encourage Mr. Grosso and others to continue to engage with the planning board to make sure that their needs and their concerns around the project are addressed. Item number 20 is a letter dated February 16th, 2024 from Steve Corvo Jr., 57 North Street, regarding an erroneous sewer assessment letter. And again, I have had a conversation with Mr. Corvo and Mr. Baldinger, and I know that you are working through this concern right now as well. Item number 21 is an email or a letter dated February 16th, 2024 from Nick Repecka, Highway Division Manager, regarding the snow report. We had 5.6 inches of snow on Monday, February 12th, and did a great job cleaning that up. Thank you very much for that. And item number 22 is an email dated February 21st, 2024 from Thomas Grosso for Candlewood Way regarding a reply to 142 Clinton Street project. And as I said, we went back and forth a little bit just to make sure that he felt comfortable with the responses. And that is the end of the agenda.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, this meeting is adjourned. Good evening.